Hey, this is Brandon Heath, and this is one small step for Bandkind.
Yes.
I like it. It totally works, and I'm a big space nerd.
You are? What makes you a big space fan?
Oh, it's a long story. But when I was a kid, I was watching the Challenger take off, and obviously the Challenger didn't make it, but we had all been studying space because there was a teacher on board,
Yeah,
and we were all I don't know, just intrigued with space. That's kind of when it really hit me, and I've always been in awe of, you know, that you can look up to a night sky and you're literally looking into space. I think that's just crazy that we can do that.
it is crazy. I remember too, I was in Mr. Lewis's class. It was a science class. We watched it and we just couldn't even go on. We couldn't even understand what we were
Yeah,
seeing on the television. I mean, it was just
yeah.
heart-wrenching.
Thankfully, I was at home that day with my mom. I don't know why I was at home, and
Wow.
maybe first or second grade. So mom was able to explain it to me. That's, when you see something really hard, you want
Yeah.
your mom or dad to kind of walk you through it.
Hmm.
But it stuck with me, and I've got a crazy story, but there's not enough time. So
No, just tell me really quick.
I'm telling you, there's not, okay. There's 1 minute, okay? I lived in Houston, Texas. I met an astronaut. That astronaut would go on to pilot one of the last shuttle missions. He would play my song, Give Me Your Eyes in Space, for his first wake up song. He then became the commander of the space station a few years later, where I designed the patch for that mission. It was Expedition 43, where they spent a year in space and learned about the effects on the body of space, and that happened to be the mission that I created the patch for. I would go to the launch in Russia, and I have just been in awe. I got to meet and become friends with Gene Cernan, who is the last guy to step foot on the moon. I was at his premiere of his movie, and he told me that he loved my music, and that's God. That's all God. I
That
told you.
is
There's not
phenomenal.
enough time. There's not enough time. When you tell it in 1 minute, it sounds like bragging. But
No, it
listen,
doesn't.
it just is proof that God is a father and that he
Yeah.
is paying attention and he loves to surprise his kids because he certainly did me.
Wow. Wow. Well, I'll say that Shane Kimbrough came alongside for
Yes,
One Small Step for Bandkind.
I love that. That's
And
very cool.
and it was totally a God moment too. I was thinking about gold records and how we all run after gold records and how that's the thing. And I used to work at a couple record companies, and so transitioning from that kind of life into radio world, into podcasting, where all of that. But the theme, the golden record, and what was on the Voyager, what's in space floating now, but a golden record that we made in the 70s to represent Earth and humanity in case some life out there were to find it, they would have some understanding of who we are. It's
Wow,
called the Golden Record, and so astronaut Shane Kimbrough and I wrote together on that. It was a very special time.
that's cool. I'll have to check that out. I was not aware of the golden record.
Oh, in space?
Didn't know about it. That's crazy.
Yes, all kinds of things to teach about who we are.
Delta Peace point plus point four, and we're going to secure the high gain and give you Omni
You
prop.
go back a minute with your music, and folks know what to expect from Brandon Heath. But I feel like this is sort of like an archive of who you are when I listen to The Ache.
Hmm. I would say it certainly touches on my childhood, but more the lessons that I've learned now. There's certainly a lot of nostalgia. I mean, the
Hmm.
cover is a photo of me when I was 3. I had a hard time figuring out what the cover was going to be because how do you encapsulate this big thought? The inspiration behind the ache is this longing that I had for my dad when I was a kid. My dad and my mom divorced, and my dad kind of started a new life. For about a year, I didn't really see him a ton. I eventually would start to see him again, but only about every other weekend, which is not enough when you're a kid. You need your dad around.
Yeah.
But it left a mark on me. When I wouldn't see my dad, I would really miss him, and I would
Yeah.
feel this physical ache in my chest. And I've only felt that for a few other people. Funny enough, it's mostly father figures,
Mm,
mentors, that when
yeah.
I am leaving them, whenever I'm walking away from them, it feels like two magnets being pulled apart. And I think that's just a glimpse of our need for God, because God is he's our heavenly father, and he created fatherhood and has mastered fatherhood. He is fatherhood. I think that that ache is ultimately for him, but as I'm journeying through life, I'm learning really important lessons, even being a dad. And that's really what the record is all about.
It's a beautiful record. I think it's so funny, the track listing, how The Ache is, of course, track one, but
Hmm.
track two was the first released, right?
Right. He does. Yep.
And I think that's so like us, right? Okay, let's skip over the ache and get to the he does part. And then let's come back to the ache as we can manage that, right?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I like making a big splash, and I feel like he does is a bigger splash.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also like saying I don't mind going to a heavy place, but sometimes
Yeah.
it can sound fun, and celebratory to go to a heavy place. It doesn't always have to be heavy.
Mm,
It can be light. And
right.
and that was one of the reasons that I wanted he does to sound like that.
Such a good, powerful song. I remember when the record label debuted it. It was so fast, and we just were like, "What is this?" It just brought us in. And then the follow up to that with Gospel Truth, I just
Mm.
feel like again you're revealing so many elements of humanity in yourself and being vulnerable, being authentic. I mean, that is what's drawing people in. And I love your vocal, even how you deliver. That's the gospel truth. It just seems so um, not about you, even though the rest of the song kind of chronicles Brandon Heath. Then it's sort of like that's the gospel truth. It chronicles Jesus too, and him being the Lord of our life. And there's one lyric that gets me every single time. I don't even care how many times I've listened to it. Just because I'm a believer doesn't mean I don't forget that my heart is a deceiver and there's doubts in my head. And then back to the holes in my witness. Everything. It's
His
just
soul's
such
in
a
my witness, but he's still filling my cup. Yeah. I wrote this song with my
powerful.
friend Luke Laird. Luke and I went to college together.
Did you
And
really?
we were at MTSU together. It was May of 2020. So remember, put yourself in May of 2020. We're still trying to figure out what the pandemic is. At that point, we're still calling it the coronavirus. Um, but he and I are neighbors. We live 4 doors down from each other, and I said, "Hey, would you mind if we're crazy?" And I came over, and we were in the same room and wrote a song together. And I think it was both he and I's first song to write in 2020 after the
Wow.
pandemic started. That time made me think about more important things other than my work. And I've been reading a lot in First Peter 3:15. It says something about make sure that you always know the reason that you believe. When someone asks you, make sure you know the reason that you believe, and share
Mm,
that with gentleness and respect. And I think the way that you can do that is not necessarily reading like the Apostles' Creed to them, but
yeah.
it's in telling them your testimony. It's my way of saying, this is why I believe,
Mhm.
because this is my story and this is what God has done in my heart. That's my way of living out that First Peter 3:15 verse, because
Mhm.
I think people do want to know what's different about us. And I think our testimony is our greatest witness.
Mhm. I do too. And it's so individual, but it's just like God. It's like a living thing. You know, when we talk about our testimony to others, they begin to find a place that it relates to themselves, much like songwriting does. And that's what makes it a beautiful thing, because it's songwriting that gets into that deep place. But then
Mhm.
having your testimony in the song is like a double portion. It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Speaking of beautiful, you're doing these amazing music videos with the American Sign Language
Yeah.
collaboration. Tell me a little bit about how that got started and why you're excited to get these videos out to people.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, we released every song on the new record on The Ache is now available in American Sign Language, ASL. The burden started for me was in 2017 when I put out my record, Faith, Hope, Love, Repeat.
Mm.
There was a guy online, his name was Ian. Ian is deaf, like legitimately doesn't have much of his hearing. He has a little, but since he was born, he's always been deaf. Um, Ian loved to translate my music into ASL from his bedroom on YouTube. And my wife actually saw him first. And so we contacted Ian and just said, "Hey, would you want to do all the songs for my new record so that anybody who is deaf and appreciates music and speaks ASL, we want you to be the person to take that to them." We flew Ian to Nashville. We did the whole record in ASL. And my publicist said, we've been looking. We can't see that anybody has ever put out an entire album who's a hearing person. We
Mm.
can't see that anybody's ever done this before. So, to our knowledge, we were the first to put an entire album out in ASL. And since I did that, any record that I want to put out, I plan to do it in ASL because there's a whole group of people out there
Mhm.
who are deaf. I believe hearing people, we don't do enough to reach out to them. It's not necessarily about accommodating, but it's really about caring. If you care enough about someone, you will reach out to them. You will make things available, and especially you will share
Mhm.
the gospel. I was reading a statistic a few days ago that in the deaf, there's about 600 deaf people groups around the world, and that puts it somewhere around 70 million people who are deaf.
Wow.
70 million people.
Wow.
And only 2% of that 70 million has heard the gospel. So you want to
Wow.
talk about a real need.
Yeah.
We're busy translating Bibles so that everybody can hear, but we're not even reaching out to our neighbors to make sure that they have heard the gospel. They've experienced the gospel
Mm.
through ASL. So this is my own way of creating maybe some entertainment, but also
Mm.
maybe they hear a song or
Mhm.
experience a song that they see themselves in.
Yeah.
And this is a visual representation of this music. And so we picked some people who are deaf, who are also
Yeah.
ASL interpreters. We call them performers, and we're collaborating on this whole new record.
They're amazing. You have to check them out on YouTube. They really are. It took me one time to understand because it was so well translated,
Mhm.
the ache. And I think if I get it right, it's the squeezing, turning of the heart. I just was
Oh,
blown
wow.
away that that was the ache. And I was like, of
Okay.
course, you know? So that was a beautiful thing. I grew up with a cousin, the Sapphire Mountains is where I was raised, and we would run through the hills there. My older cousin, he was kicked in the side of the head by a horse
Oh,
when he
oh,
was 4, and so then became deaf after that, and it was amazing to see him thrive in so many ways, in a world that didn't speak into his life. I don't know if you've seen Andy Mineo's. He wrote this for his sister. It's been a years back, maybe even like a decade now. But he wrote a music video designed for her to see it. And he says in the song, "I'm sorry I didn't bother learning your language. I just threw up the peace sign and went on." And
Ooh,
so,
no.
yeah, I would highly recommend. It's powerful.
It's
It's very
incredible.
different. And of course, it's for his sister. It's called Hear My Heart. It's written for her like there's really like bright things happening and sharp things happening. It's not necessarily, he does sign in it as a gift to her. He said, I learned to sign just because I do want to show you that I love you instead of just being like, peace.
Yeah,
So,
there's so many families who don't learn ASL. From what I've heard, the moms will learn ASL, but the fathers won't. Can you
wow.
imagine the rejection that you must feel that your own father won't learn ASL so that he can
Communicate
communicate
with
with
you.
you?
No.
So that's one of the reasons that I feel really important about this record, because this is about deep father wounds. This record is about deep father
Yes.
wounds for me. And there are so many of our deaf neighbors who are out there who have these massive father wounds from rejection. And I hope that they hear these songs. And I hope
Amen.
that I have said something that they haven't necessarily known how to say or put words to, if for no other reason to give them permission to grieve the loss of that opportunity to have a real relationship with your father. Because I think so many people in the deaf community, that's a reality.
Hmm. Brandon, yeah, you're the bridge in that because they want to be heard. The deaf community is hearing this, feeling the ache, and then perhaps that father figure who hasn't spent the time is feeling the ache. This bridges the two of them together, and it's something that they can heal in taking it in. You did such a
Great.
great job. You did such a great job on this.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Nick.
Yeah. I know you got to go, man. I could spend so much more time with you, but thank you, Brandon. And I'm just excited about this record, excited about what it's going to do for people. And I mean, keep on going, man.
I will. I appreciate it. I feel so fortunate to have made music for as long as I have. Um, I was just hanging out with my friend David Leonard, who's been doing music as long as I have. And for us, we feel like our best songs are being written now. So it's interesting to see what God will do in this next season as we are our dads and God's revealing new things to us.
Well said. Well
All right.
said. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick. I really appreciate you taking time to talk to me today, and thanks for talking about the ASL videos.
Absolutely. Love them. They're beautiful. Go and check them out. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
See you.